Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is Francesca Nunez from No Longer Silent. Thank you so much for logging in to hear me. We're going to have a good topic tonight, very good topic. And as usual, I always have, bear with me, the poem is a little long this time, but it has to do with a very sensitive topic tonight, and hopefully a lot of people come in tonight to listen in because I dealt with the situation firsthand this week. So here we go. The morning after I killed myself. The morning after I killed myself, I woke up. I made myself breakfast in bed. I added salt and pepper to my eggs. I used my toast for a cheese and bacon sandwich. I squeezed the grapefruit into a juice glass. I scraped the ashes from the frying pan and rinsed the butter off the counter. I washed the dishes and folded towels. The morning after I killed myself, I fell in love, not with the boy down the street or in the middle school principal, not with the everyday jogger or grocer who always left the avocados out of the bag. I fell in love, with my mother and the way she sat on the floor of the room holding each rock from my collection in her palms until they grew dark with sweat. I fell in love with my father down at the river as he placed my note into a bottle and sent it into the current. With my brother who once believed in unicorns but who now sat in his desk at school trying to desperately to believe I still exist. The morning after I killed myself, I walked the dog. I watched the way her tail twitched. Then a bird flew by and how her pace quickened at the sight of a cat. I saw the empty space in her eyes when she reached the stick and turned around to greet me so we can play catch, but saw nothing but in the sky, my place. I stood by a stranger, stroked her muzzle, and she waited beneath their touch like she did not once for mine. The morning after I killed myself, I went to the neighbor's yard where I left my footprints in the concrete as a 2-year-old and examined how they were already fading. I picked a few daffodils and pulled a few weeds and watched the elderly woman through her window as she read the paper with the news of my death. I saw her husband spit tobacco into the kitchen sink and bring her her daily medication. The morning after I killed myself, I watched the sun come up. Each orange tree opened like a hand, and the kid down the street pointed out a single red cloud to his mother. The morning after I killed myself, I went back to that body in the morgue and tried to talk some sense into her, and I told her about the avocados and the stepping stones, the river, and her parents. I told her about the sunset and the dog and the beach. The morning after I killed myself, I tried to unkill myself, but could not finish what I started. Wow. That is very deep. We live in a world where we have to watch, and I'm going to say, use our children. We have to watch our children. It's very devastating to me to see a lot of young teenagers with the topic where they commit suicide, where they think they're not worthy, where they don't know where to go to, who to speak to when they feel pain, sadness, grief, anything they're feeling. My topic tonight is help for cutting and self-injury. I took on a case this week which inspired me to do this today because he's 16 years old and he was cutting himself because they were bullying him because he was fat. And because of his overweight, he had breasts. And they kept saying he was gay, he looks like a woman, and it was due to because he was overweight. And it was sad for me to hear everything he was saying to me, but I shook him out of that, and I told him, you don't live for validation from no one. I can't disclose his name, but I said, you look for your own validation. You got to love you. You got to love how you look, how you feel. If those individuals, you don't know them, you don't give them that power, that validation. You got to learn to love yourself. And he was cutting himself because he didn't know where to go, who to speak to. And they reached out to me. And within an hour and 30 minutes, I can say God invoked and helped me help him. And now his life is totally a little different. And he's working on some goals that we set forth for him to do. Not because Francesca told him or anybody around him. It has to be him. Cutting is a serious thing. We normally don't know why they do this. Is a self-injury, is something for them to, relieve the pain of what they're going through. Let it be molestation, let it be child abuse, let it be rape, let it be bullying, let it be where they don't feel validation in their own home. And sometimes that's where it starts. It's a sensitive topic for me because, like I said, I did mentor someone that was 16 this week, and I told him, you don't want to go to a center. How I went, and I seen girls under the age of 18 and over, how their arms look like. And if you cut the right artery, you are no longer here, and you just leave the grief, the mourning, to the people that really care about you, which are your true friends and your families. So self-cutting is very dangerous. I don't like it. It's very disturbing to see and witness when you go to these centers and they tell you they can't stop. This is how I numb from my father raping me, or my uncle, or my brother, or when I was passed on. This is how I relieve my mother telling me, I hate you, I didn't want you, I wish you was never born. These are the stuff you hear from these young teenagers. And I'm going to start by saying that where I saw the data, it says there are few things more disturbing for moms and dads than finding out that your child is intentionally hurting himself. Unfortunately, it's very common, especially among girls. Experts call it self-injury. As many as of a quarter of a lot of teenagers, they do this. Most common form of the self-injury is cutting, scratching the skin with anything that can draw blood, such as a razor or a paper clip, pen cap. But people also self-injure by burning themselves, picking at the skin or wound, or hitting themselves. They often start around puberty. See what I mean? They start young, and it's depending the atmosphere, their living surroundings, school. Can you just imagine trying to cut yourself with a razor, paper clip, pencil cap, even burning yourself, picking at your skin, hitting yourself? You can just imagine what's going through their heads. When a person develops a habit of cutting their arm, it might look like suicidal behavior, but it actually isn't. We got to know the difference. People who self-injure are trying to kill themselves. They are trying to alleviate some emotional distress that they're feeling. However, the behavior indicates a depth of psychic pain that can lead to suicide attempt. The behavior is very dangerous because people who self-injure may hurt themselves more seriously than intended and develop infection or other complications. You see how dangerous I say self-cutting is. The aftermath of what comes. Like I said, we have to know how to talk to our children, really have to know the words we utilize. I've always said, learning from experience, words carry a lot of weight. I'm the type that I'd rather have you slap me and that goes away within seconds then hurt me with words that they stay embedded in my mind, where I think about them over and over and over and over and over. And I always say words carry a lot of weight. You don't know how that person feels at the moment, looking for that validation, especially when it comes from a parent, and they wonder why they even had them, why they even exist, if that's how they're going to be treated. Sometimes it's hard to understand why anyone would intentionally hurt themselves, or why that injury would come as a relief. As many self-injuries describe it, some people report that it serves as a distraction from some other intense emotional pain. Others self-harm because they feel deaded inside. They lock down so tightly because of whatever's going on in their lives that they feel they're incapable of feeling anything at all. So they hurt themselves in order to feel something. Does anyone have, any testimony, seen anybody go through this? Would like to just give, some kind of suggestion? I'm open to it. Would anybody want to speak? I'll continue.
Well, yeah, I'd just like to say that, Francesca, you educate me, because I don't know anybody that's been through what you have mentioned so far, things like that. So I will conclude on that note and listen to you further conversation. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Yeah, self-cutting, a lot of people don't want to talk about that, but like I said, I took on a case this week, and it's very sad when he's 16, and that bothered me completely, and I made sure the mom called me right at 4 after work. There was nothing more important than that for me, and that's why I wanted to do this topic tonight, because he inspired me, and I managed to get him not to think about doing that no more. Like I said, words carry a lot of weight, and there was a lot of positive stuff he said to me that he said it wasn't worth it to pay attention to those people at all because they weren't from the school. And I said, more power to you. And I also suggested what he wanted to change about himself, of his weight, not because someone told him he was underweight, what he felt that he wanted to do. And he wanted to lose some weight, and I told him, how do you want to accomplish those goals? He was like, how do you want to do it? Not how Francesca's going to suggest you should do it. And he just said by doing exercise, watching what he eats, run around the area where he lives at, walk. And I said, that's good. Write it down. Write it down. And he promised me he would never cut himself no more. I made my phone number accessible to him whenever he feels some type of way to reach out to me, whether I'm working or whatever. I make it happen because he's only 16 and he wants to become a doctor. And I told him, when I come visit you, you're going to be my doctor. So positive notes on how to speak to, a youth. A way to cope. Understanding the drive, where I already said, why they do what they do. They lock in their feelings, and they think that makes them feel better by cutting themselves. But self-injury isn't always a form of communication. Some kids are very secretive about the habit, are focused only on their own pain, not sharing it. And that's what clinicians call a coping tool. Even though self-injury isn't the best way to manage a problem, but it might be a temporary relief for them. Yet again, we can't judge when they do this. That's their way to relieve their pain. Is it something that I agree with? Absolutely not. There should be communication, and I know it's hard because depending why they're doing this and to who they're going to reach out to, sometimes you got to understand they might not be there to listen. I firsthand have that knowledge. I reached out to my mother, and I told her what my ex-husband physically was doing to me, and verbally, and she told me to fix it. So that was not my to-go person anymore because she did not listen to the graphic parts of what he was doing to me. I was the issue, I was the problem, and I was supposed to fix it. So I can relate with someone going through something where I said words carry a lot of weight. I thank God I never did this. I can't even have somebody stick a needle on me and draw blood without me fainting. So I can just imagine me even trying to do this. I would call it a brave and bold move for you to inflict that kind of injuries to your body. The aftermath, I've seen that the wounds start looking like worms when they're healing, and they are there forever, which is very, not a good sight to see. And that's something that when they're in recovery, they have to look at for the rest of their lives and know the memory that they inflicted that. So I've seen that firsthand. But unfortunately, that relief makes self-injuries behavior very reinforcing, so kids come to rely upon it as a way to deal with painful feelings. And the longer they practice self-injury, the more reinforcing it becomes. This situation becomes a point where as much as they keep cutting, as deep as they keep going, they think whatever happened to them is going to go away, whether it was an abuse, whether it was a parent physically, verbally abusing them. The more cuts, the more they feel good because they're doing that. As they're cutting, they're eliminating that pain. And I can't sometimes understand that myself because I got a paper cut and a little vinegar and lemon fell on it, and I screamed that I think New York would have hurt me, so I could imagine me trying to, with a razor, cut myself into my skin deeper and deeper and not hit a vein. I can't imagine that. I always say prayers up for anyone going through the situation. Like I said, it's nothing good. Sometimes they get addictive. We have to say that they get addicted to cutting. They got to the point that that's how they feel good and they can fight off their pain. And you have some that really fight to stop cutting and they can't. If there's no longer an area in their body in the arms to do it, they start with the legs. If there's no more in the legs, they start the thighs. They'll start their back. They'll start their chest. As long as every area that they cut is covered. Like I said, I've seen this. It's very sad to see firsthand why someone, not being judgmental would do that. I know communication is very hard. From when I mentored someone, it said it was very hard. They rather have kept everything to themselves, and cutting themselves was something how they felt good. It was very hard for me to, process that. Red flags for cutting. If you suspect that a child may be self-harming but not sure, look for these signs. Talking about self-injury. Suspicion-looking scars. That would mean that they start wearing long sweaters. Question that in the summertime. Why a long sweater? In the winter, okay, but in the summertime, question it. Wounds that don't heal or get worse. Cuts on the same place. They might roll up their sleeves and you might see a cut. Okay, you'll let it pass, but then you see 2 or 3 right after it. Question it. Look at it. Ask what's going on. Increased isolation. This starts happening when they don't want to go to school. Some parents, for whatever reason, allow them to sign themselves out, and they start staying home, and you see they don't come out of the room. You have to bring their food to the room. Start questioning why they don't want to come out of the room, in the living room, and dining room to eat with the family. Question it a lot. That's a form of that they're staying away from the population. Collecting sharp tools, such as glass, safety pins, nail scissors, knives. If you start seeing that there's stuff that used to be in the kitchen, start looking in the rooms where they're at. Anything in the garage that that you kept hanging in that same place and it's no longer there, start looking in the rooms to see underneath the bed, closet, drawers, in between the clothes. Question that too. Wearing long sleeve shirts in the warm weather. Avoiding social activities. If they're cheerleaders, they'll stop being cheerleaders, playing softball, because they have to wear shorts and short sleeve shirts, and they don't want people to see. Wearing a lot of bandages. Question that when you see that. Refusing to go in the locker or changing in the school because they want to be covered up. So those are the red flags. Long sleeves in the summer, question it. No longer going into the locker room and changing. They won't suit up or nothing because they don't want nobody to see the wounds. What's the triggers? Anybody has any questions? Don't be shy. Don't be shy up in here. If anybody has a testimony or knows somebody that did this, don't be shy. I'll continue with triggers. Triggers. The impulse a teenager feels to harm themselves is almost always triggered by a special event in their life. I don't see how they say special, but I would say specific event. The common trigger is cutting is feeling rejected, a romantic interest by their close friends, or by a general feeling or being left out or criticized. And I include bullying in there. Cutting can also be a copycat behavior inspired by videos, images that show other people cutting. I questioned a couple of weeks ago these TikTok, kudos to whoever follows TikTok. I'm not a fan of them. There's a lot of stuff that our children are influenced by. They do a lot of challenges. Some of these challenges are very dangerous. TikTok is not my number one fan for me. There's a lot of stuff that they show up there that there should be an age restriction. They show too much to hurt yourself. I've seen a lot of challenges up there that children should not even be doing, harmful, and will send them to the hospital. So I'm not a fan of TikTok. Getting self-harm help. This is the real challenge here. Sometimes no one wants to get help. I have no problems. What are you talking about? I'll be fine. I can handle it. I can do it by myself. What are you talking about? I'm not doing that. If you discover your child has been self-harming, and if they say it was a one-time, see, and I wasn't even looking at the paper, it's important to get help. It's true that kids might experiment with self-injury, especially if they have friends who are doing it. But it's serious and dangerous behavior, and you don't want to ignore what might be a real mental issue. I'm glad that research said that. It's a real mental issue because I already said it. It's a one-time thing. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not going to do it again. You have to keep on them because it gets to the point, it gets addictive. That's how they numb whatever they're going through. They may say they're going to stop. You turn around, another situation happened to them, and they go and they're cutting themselves. Where you saw 2 or 3 markings, the next day you'll probably see 5, 6, 7 in different areas. It won't be in the same spot because they already know that you know and you're going to do something about it. Evaluations to begin with. You should have your child evaluated by a mental health professional to find out what's their reason for self-harm and what emotional difficulties they're experiencing. It might not be a problem in the home. It might be a school situation. It might be a boyfriend situation or a close friend. If they don't want to tell you, let them tell a professional. 9 out of 10 is very hard a professional to get the truth out of them. It has to be a couple of sessions before they break. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. But we have a success rate that they do admit that they're doing it, and they say why. And 9 out of 10, I have to say, they can't stop. and that's when it gets real serious. Behavioral therapy is highly recommended. Is a treatment that is DPT, which is a psychologist works with your child to help them learn to tolerate uncomfortable feelings, anger, anxiety, rejections, without resorting to cutting. Once they do enter the counseling, it gets, not intense, but the therapist tries their hardest where they get them to not resort to cutting, to opening to their feelings and accepting anger. If they have anxiety, this type of therapy sometimes comes medication, intense therapy, because sometimes it would be like weekly, especially if it's a cutter. In my case, when I lost my husband, it was twice a month. So it differs depending on the situation. Cognitive behavioral therapy. A psychologist teaches your child to challenge the negative, distressing thoughts, to recognize the pattern, train herself to think outside of it. In many cases, particularly teenagers, this treatment is very successful. Very, very successful, this treatment. Cognitive behavior therapy. The other one was behavior therapy. Family therapy is very important. If there are things going on at the home, fighting, job loss, death, that can be a source of your child's emotional problem. Family therapy is a good way to begin treatment. I have my thoughts on this one. Sometimes we run into the mom and dad. They say there's not a problem, there's no issue, and they don't want to go. And sometimes the child is put first, and then once the child is going, the therapist tries to intervene to get if it's just a single parent or if there's both parents, to let them know that if they're all together, this can be rectified for the well-being of the child or the youth, which is very, very important, because right now what matters is, our youth. Medication. Often there's another disorder involved. A doctor will prescribe medication to treat that condition. The combination of medication, psychotherapy is very successful in treating kids who self-harm. Sometimes we don't want to look to medications, but it's very, very important depending on the situation. Like I said, if it's a cutter that doesn't want to stop and continues, we have to be, very mindful that there has to be intense therapy and medication. Sometimes they don't want to take the medication, but I would say if you're self-cutting and you're addicted to it, therapy would not be enough. Medication should be added to it. Someone wants to say something? Okay. All right, we'll continue. Therapy is very important if it's intense. Situations like this, like in my case, I said this week I took on a case of a 16-year-old. I asked the mom permission. I was able to speak to him. And the consultation over the phone, I try to be non-judgmental. I try to make it, I'm just going to, off the head, give a name. Well, Jeffrey, what happened today to you? And he told me I was bullied today because of the way I look, because I'm fat, I weigh this much. And what did you do? And he was, I cut myself. And I asked him, how did you feel when you did that? He was, I was angry. But I didn't want to tell my mother what was going on. I intervened there by saying, before I spoke to you, I want you to know that your mother said academically you're a very smart kid. She loves you very much. And he was like, she did? I'm like, yeah, she spoke to me because I had to ask her permission because you're a minor. But I want you to know that she loves you very much. And she says that academically you want to become a doctor. I was like, so if you hit an artery will we have Jeffrey here? He was like, no. I said, who will you hurt in the process? The one person that's always going to be in your corner, your mother. He was like, yeah. I said, would you like to inflict that kind of pain on her? Absolutely not, he said. I said, how can we do this different? And I started asking him, were the ones picking on you? Do they go to school with you? No. Random guys off the street. I said, okay. Does it matter? I was like, do they clothe you? Do they feed you? Did they take you to school? No. He was like, it shouldn't really matter. He told me it shouldn't matter because they don't come with me to school. I was like, so they're the problem, not you. You can't look for validation for anybody outside. And he started understanding what I was saying. I said, so if you hurt yourself by cutting, what if you cut a wrong artery, blood vessel, and you bleed out? Then we won't have Jeffrey here. And he was like, yeah, you're right. I said, did it hurt when you do it? He said, absolutely, yes. I said, can you tell me what you did it with? And he said, a knife. I was like, can you tell me where you got the knife from? He was like, the kitchen. All this stuff I was asking him that he was willingly telling me is that when I had the sidebar conversation with the mom to tell her what to remove in what areas so he won't have access to it if he was to ever do it again. That's a tactic that you use because you let them talk and you're the listener. So once he told me all of that, I told him, okay, what would Jeffrey want to change about himself? And he said his weight. And I said, how would Jeffrey go about it? Not Francesca telling Jeffrey. And he was like, well, I would exercise, monitor my food intake. I said, well, that's good. Then, grab a piece of paper and write it down. Do sit-ups, jumping jacks, walk 5 miles. Start little by little, but write it down. And I said, I'll give you another suggestion that I've told people. Journal. If there's a day you feel angry, write it down. Date, time, and the month that it happened. Write it every single day. And he was like, that's a good idea. Write all your feelings down. Use as many notebooks as you want. When you feel that you're ready to tell your mom what happened, then go to her. But your journal is your privacy. Hide it anywhere under your bed, in your drawers, because that's for Jeffrey to look at and Jeffrey to write his feelings. Which, sidebar, I told his mom that's what he would be doing, but that's his privacy. So we got to a lot of, pros and cons, a lot of suggestions. He promised me he was not going to do that again. Like I said, I gave him my number. Whenever he feels sad or he doesn't have anyone to talk to or doesn't want to talk to his mom, he can reach out to me. And like I said, he promised never to do that. He was going to journal. He was going to work on his weight and also finish school because he wants to become a doctor. So when we go out in the field to talk to these teenagers, we have to know how we're going to talk to them, not be judgmental. Because if I didn't have the education and the know-how, I can switch the script and say, Jeffrey, why you did that? That's a stupid move. Are you out of your mind? You're crazy. Cutting yourself? That's dumb. Because they bullied you? Get over it. We can never talk to a teenager that way. That's me being judgmental and unprofessional. I switched it around and made it about him, not about Francesca. And I never once told him he was stupid. Is he out of his mind? Why did he do that? Never. I never told him, well, if you're fat, then the only solution is, boy, get out there and have X. No. What does Jeffrey want to do about his weight? Look in the mirror and look at Jeffrey and see what Jeffrey does not like and what he would like to change, because you want to change, not because your mother said it, not Francesca or anybody outside, because Jeffrey wants that. Write it down. And the whole time we were giggling and laughing, and I gained confidence of the 16-year-old, where at the end he told me, thank you so much for taking time to listen to me, not judge me, make me laugh, make me feel good about myself. I was happy and he was happy. But I told him, I don't know you, but I feel through our conversation that I know you, and I want you to know I don't ever want you to do that. Ever want you to do that again. That's not the solution, because you have a beautiful mom that's willing to sit down with you and listen to you. Reach out to her. That's your best friend. Nobody out there is going to love you like your mom. And she was very worried. So always reach out to her because she's going to listen to you. And if you feel like you can't tell her something, reach out to me and I'll, give you the consultation how to go about it. But his mom was very easygoing and loving. But he was only 16. Only 16. Can you imagine that? He cut himself twice in the arm with a knife. How many of our teenagers out there, from the neck to their ankles, that are cut up because they're trying to numb whatever pain? I've seen someone that their whole body looks like, after it heals, like worms. And I asked her, why did you do that to yourself? I was raped by my father, his brother. And the line went on and on and on. I couldn't deal with it. My mother wasn't involved. She died. And for her to understand that the man that was supposed to protect her was the man that was hurting her. And she could never get over that, so she cut herself so many times trying to get answers as to why. The father, the uncle, and the line kept on and on. The brothers passed on. Uncle was supposed to protect her too. I had no answers for that. There was no way for me to sit down there and relate and answer that because I didn't go through that. That's hard. Another one was that her mother prostituted her. She was the John, and whoever came in the apartment, she was only allowed an allowance to buy her favorite snack. That's it. The rest of the money went to the mom. And she was passed over to like 10, 20 men a day at the age of 14. What answers do we have to that? How can I tell her to stop cutting herself? Her mom, the person that gave her birth, that was supposed to protect her. That's somebody right now that's still cutting herself because she can't deal with the fact. Can she move on a relationship? Can she finish school? No. So those are sad situations when we have our teenagers cutting themselves because people want to be hurtful. Dysfunctional families where they can't deal with why my mom drinks, why my dad is an alcoholic and uses drugs. How will I get out of this situation? Very, very hard. If you think life is hard for an adult, imagine our teenagers. Very, very hard. Anyone has any questions? Can relate to anyone that you know that's cutting. Is it right for them to cut themselves? Don't be shy. We're here open to communication.
Hey, Francesca.
Hello.
Yeah, so I just tuned in to hear a little bit of lady cutting her. I can recall a child before here. It was a boy, and he used to pick. He used to pick at his skin, and he actually used to bite all the skin off his fingertips and off his toes. He would bring his feet up to his mouth, and he would bite all around his skin, and to the point of making himself bleed. And yeah, he picked at his skin. He picked. I don't, it was many years ago. I don't remember his story, but I just remember the way he used to pick and bite his nails and bite the skin all around the tips of the fingers and whatnot. It was terrible.
Yeah, it is, Ms. Carol, it is. And like I said, I witnessed a lot of teenagers, when you take these classes and stuff like that, you are taken physically. I want people to know that any field that in my case, any field that I proceed and take any classes, you are taken to rehabs. you are taken to these places so you can see firsthand what the person looks like, what you're going to be dealing with, and how you're going to speak to them. That's the part that I really don't like. I'm very emotional, but sometimes they show you to toughen up a little. But with me, it's a little harder because I sympathize and I can relate a little of my situation. And cutting, let me tell you something. If you guys even look at videos in YouTube, you'll be like, wow. Very, 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 very dangerous. Like I said, I named my anonymous person that I spoke to, I'm going to name him Jeffrey. I spoke to him the harms of him cutting himself. And I thank God that the mother reached out to someone that knows me and was like, this is the person you should speak to. She's good. You know, I see her in Facebook. She educates herself in this, and she will listen. And I told the person, tell her to call me immediately after work at 4. I want to talk to her and her son before he even. I caught it at the first time, which he knows that he will never do it again because I really, really went deaf into his mom, how much she cares about him, how much she loves him. And I went and hit harder because he says he wants to be a doctor. And academically, he's a very, very smart 16-year-old with a future ahead of him. And I told him, I was like, if you cut yourself because they're bullying you and you don't know these people from Adam, is a different story than when school will pull. We'll start pulling and get the principal and the teacher involved. But there was random people from the streets. I said, you're going to have that. I even told them, I said, I got bullied in school myself, and I learned how to handle it. I cried and got angry as an emotion that's normal, but I never suggested myself to do self-harm because at the end of the day, you're marking your body up, and that's something down the road that you're going to physically look at, and it's going to be a reminder of however you felt at that moment for whatever reason. Let it be bullying or, like I said, child abuse, molestation, rape, prostitution. The list goes on and on as to why they do that. Is it something recommendable? No. Is it something that can be stopped and treated? Absolutely yes, if the person is willing to take that step. And when I say willing to take that step, I've been in centers that they still continue to cut themselves. They are monitored around the clock with medication, therapy, but still manage to get a plastic fork, a plate, toothbrush, and they still do it. And they cannot tell you why they can't stop. They just say that, yes, sweetheart.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Very good. I'm on my phone. I'm not on the app, so I shouldn't have any oops tonight. So, no, I had an oops yesterday. So, Ms. Carol mentioned something that I was thinking. I just came on, and thank you for just reviewing what you were discussing. And now you're saying the same thing. They can't tell you why they did it. We have so many parts of our brain that are operating in a way that we don't understand. So when it's not operating, that part, properly, we do things. And what Ms. Carol was mentioning is that she, the young man she was speaking about, he would bite his nails. He would do things, somebody would say for attention, but it's not necessarily for attention. It's like people who suck their thumb. And people who normally, or I'll say normally, bite their nails. And people who are always tapping with their fingernails, always tapping. We have so many triggers. Let me say this. We are a very complicated machine, very complicated. And no one is really giving us the in and out, even as far as they know it. We see the external behavior, but we don't know the internal cause. And even if somebody's being bullied or abused, well, we know this. There are people who are being abused, and you would never know it, right? So it's not
Absolutely.
Right. So it's not always those things that are causing it. It's almost like the side effect. It's like a side effect. Like some people will eat and belch constantly.
Oh, yes.
Constantly. And many people can eat and never. There are some people who have never belched. Our bodies are just so complicated. But I'm glad you were able to help not only the young man, but everyone that you put your heart and soul into helping. The root cause is sometimes totally separate from the physical action. And sometimes it's related, but it takes time. And they will medicate you based on your symptoms. They will do that. But the medication is not always the answer if we don't know the root cause. The two root causes. One, what's troubling you. That's just like a panic attack. Panic attacks you can control just by talking yourself out of them. But you have to remember you can talk yourself out of them because you're panicked. And people do all kinds of things, right? When they panic.
Oh,
they
yes.
Panic and they do their breathing changes. Sometimes they stop breathing. They start spinning around. So many reactions when they panic. But really, there is nothing to panic about. It's like your brain creates more and more sensation of a situation. So your behavior, because of it, is usually more than the issue that has probably passed. But we're not being taught how to control these things, how to control your thinking. There's some new shows coming on that's really going to tap into that with the breathing and the meditation, and even fasting has become a popular subject because it's about giving your body a chance to find itself again physiologically, giving it a chance to say, hey, nothing's coming, so let me go find something to use for energy, But we really, really, really need to know more about our bodies and our brains, especially. Thank you very much.
No, absolutely, Vanity. Absolutely. And like you just said, our body, like I said, our body it's like a very rough instrument. And the mind, forget it. When you set yourself to say you're going to do something, no one can talk you out of it. No one. And like I said, this new case that I took on, it was on my mind because I was like, oh, my God, I never really spoke to somebody that's, started a cut. And I was just invoking God like, okay, when she calls me at 4, let me listen to her and then get permission to speak to the son. And really, I was computing my head, how am I going to, talk to the young man? What am I going to, say? How I'm going to go about it? And I just thank God that I was invoked God that afternoon, and I made it like about, I introduced myself and everything, and I made it about him. I said, I'm here to listen to you. Whatever you tell me stays confidential. Whatever you want me to tell your mom, I'll tell her, but it has to be you giving me permission, but I'm here to listen to you. You tell me whatever you did, and I'm not going to judge you. I'm just going to listen. I may ask you, why did you do that? What led you to do that? And will you ever do it? Like after an hour and 30 minutes, we got to a conclusion that he said he wasn't going to do it again. He's not going to give that person that power, that validation no more. I made him feel important. I told him that he has to embrace how God brought him into the world. I said, listen, I'm skinny, and I'm going to say it up here. When I was in high school, I was a thin, skinny little girl. And I told him, I was like, you want to laugh and know what they said about me? I said, Popeye the Serious? They used to call me Ella Boy, how skinny I was. And he was like, oh, that's terrible. I'm like, yeah. And I used to go home and cry. Never told my mother. I sucked it up. And I told him, and I was like, and guess what? If we get to meet I am a beautiful flower. I got to go to my class reunion, and they saw me how I looked it. I was absolutely beautiful. I looked it better than the ones that were bullying me. And at the end of the day, I showed no animosity because I said hi to all of them, and they all kept saying, wow, you bloomed into this beautiful woman. I also gained, not too much weight, but something there. And I said, and I showed them who I was, what I became, what I'm doing. And they just basically looked at me and was like, whoa, Francesca, you don't look like a major difference. And he got to laughing. But I sympathized and related a situation that happened to me so he can understand that you're not the only one. You're going to get picked on by people. We're not perfect. And he was like, wow, how you handle that? I said, I never gave emphasis. I just continued to go to school. I wanted to make something out of myself. And I just started with the sticks and stones, and I said it to him in Spanish because he speaks Spanish. And I told him sticks and stones may make my bones, but names will never hurt me. I said it in Spanish to him. He was like, wow, that's a good saying. I'm like, and that's what I kept in my head. And then I looked physically of who was saying what to me, and I didn't give them that validation. But, yeah, it's hurtful. I used to go home and cry, but I never once in my head decided to do anything to hurt myself. Because back then the times were different. We mostly cried, hit the wall, hit the pillow or something. It's not like now that this new generation, there's a lot of stuff out there. We have alcohol, we have drugs, we have all that, all that stuff. If you're too fat, they start eating food and throwing it up, bulimic. So we have all that stuff out there. And we had a good conversation, and where I said, I really got to him because he started laughing, feeling good about himself. And then after everything was settled, I said, how do you feel now? He said, I feel great. I got it out of my system. I'm not going to do that no more. I'm not going to hurt my mom. I'm not going to hurt myself. I'm not just going to listen to people no more, and I'm just going to keep moving forward, Francesca. And I'm like, good. And I was like, I'm glad you feel good because I feel good, because I don't want you to hurt yourself. I want that young man that's going to become a doctor to take care of me if I ever go down out of state. And he started laughing. So I gained that confidence from him by talking to him. And like I said, I offered my number, and we stay in touch this morning. I told him, how do you feel this morning? He was like, I feel great, Miss Francesca. I said, well, good. Finish school, let me know how everything goes, and when you graduate, please let me know. I would like to come to your graduation. He was like, really? I was like, yeah, I want to see that famous doctor. I said, I want to see that famous doctor. So I blew up his self-esteem. Where he said it was low, I blew it up to the gazoo because I made the whole entire conversation about him. I made him feel important. I made him feel that he can tell me anything, and he felt good. So, and that made me feel good. And we came to an understanding. We came to goals and commitments of what not to do anymore and who to reach out to. Your mom or me, I'm here for you. So, like I said, that was You want to say something?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So we're going to be speaking to young people on September 30th at the event in Newark. And as you're speaking, you're speaking, which is great. You're speaking to the after effect, like after someone's been bullied, they felt traumatized. What can we say to young people who have never been bullied, but it may come across them? What can we say to them so that they can then say, like in his case, now when they bully him, all he has to do when he is a professional and you're not, in his head, I'm a professional and you're not. I'm going to be a doctor. Like totally neutralizing whatever it was they said, because they say what they say. And you don't act like you don't hear it, because you do hear it. But to that, you say in your mind, I'm going to be a doctor. Let's see what happens in 20 years. Like have that boost inside of you. Have that positive thought. You know how they say think positive thoughts?
Yes.
Have that positive thought inside of you. So I'm going to remember this so that during that event and just speaking to young people in general, you know, even older people, you know, everybody gets offended when let me repeat, change that. Many people are still
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Many people of all ages are still affected when people speak down to them. So not even just for young people, like adults as well, you know, because there's verbal abuse. Now, if you don't come that close to me, I don't have to hit you. But if you're just going to spew out some words, you know, my head is like, and you know, next, or when they say, I pity you, I pity you, and you don't have to say it. All you have to do is think it. So it's really like a mantra that people should adapt that's personal to them based on their future, based on their goals and their dreams, that when someone is trying to hurt them and trying to offend them and trying to knock them down, they could just reach for that mantra and be like, anyway.
Yeah. You know? Ivana, I want to tell you, I went to East Side to speak. I was asked to speak. And I was in the auditorium, roughly I would say, I think they were juniors or seniors. I don't know why the freshmen were invited, but I had heavy hitters. And I was supposed to talk about bullying because there was a lot of bullying in that school. When I say a lot, it was a lot. And I was referred to go. I was a little nervous because it was, you know, I would say an older crowd because they're teenagers. Some are, you know, when they're seniors, they're leaving already out of high school, going to college, university, and then the juniors. When I started speaking, I had a young man, before I even started, he yelled and said, can I ask you something? You look young yourself. What are you going to talk to us about? And I said, you'll be surprised. I'm not as young as, and we're talking about a couple of years, that I had the discussion. I said, I'm not that young as you think, but yes, I'm here to talk about bullying, but I'm going to ask you a question before I even start. What's bullying to you? Bullying is like a lot of things, like picking on the person, you know, defects of theirs, dumb, stupid, you know, hitting them, abusing them. I said, good, because that's the topic we're going to talk. I said, and do you think that's good? He was like, absolutely not. I said, do I have anybody in the audience that used to do that? And believe it or not, the honesty really prevailed that day because some raised their hands. And the discussion turned out to be a question and answer instead of me talking about bullying. I made it about that young man just started talking first. And I said, for the ones that raised their hands, can you tell me how you bullied the person? I'm not here to judge. I just want to know, because y'all raised your hands, if y'all feel free to say, how did you bully the person? And can you tell me, was it, you know, male and female? And after the math, what happened to you, what consequences or how you felt? And lo and behold, I had about 100 students in that auditorium, and about 50 raised their hands. All 50 said exactly what they did, to who they did, and why they did, and what the repercussion they got, and would they do it again. A percentage of them said they wouldn't, because they wouldn't want that happening to them because they saw what they inflicted in the person. And from the consequences they had got, which was sometimes suspended or indoor suspension, wasn't nothing good, because all of them that raised their hands said their education was important to them. And here they were throwing it almost out the window because they were bullying youth. So my discussion turned into questions and answers, and they caught on to that because they were like, you never educated us on bullying. I said, no, y'all educated me, because we went into a discussion before I even opened to speak about what bullying was. You guys enlightened me and helped me learn more, because y'all were honest enough to say, I did it, and this is who I did it to. and how I did it and what happened to me. And y'all answered. My whole discussion is that y'all shouldn't do bully anyone because there's repercussions. It can be done. You don't want it done to you. So the discussion was turned around to them instead of to me. And that was the first time. Go ahead.
No, that was excellent. But what I was thinking, when he came out of nowhere, he was almost bullying you because he was taking over the conversation. He stepped out when he wasn't supposed to. He was out of place, totally out of place. You know.
Exactly.
And he was just doing attention. Because a lot of times bullies behave in the way they do for attention. That was
but
great,
you know,
though. I know that was great.
Yeah, but you saw how I turned it around? I quickly turned it around. And I made it about him. I was like, then you talk to me and you tell me what bullying is. I was like, because that's exactly what I was supposed to discuss, but now I'm going to make it about you guys. You tell me what bullying is. And we just started talking. Before you know it, the principal, the teachers were like, wow, you turned it around where you didn't do a discussion. You did a question and answer and got them speaking to you without you even educating them what bullying was. They answered it for me. They practically took the show over. And sometimes that happens to me when I'm speaking somewhere where, you know, sometimes they'll be the ones that if you get, I call that one the outcaster, the one that you said that wanted to make, you know, the show about him. And I inflicted all the intention to him. I said, then explain to me what is bullying. Explain to me what it is. And he started, and then I opened the conversation. How many show of hands have done it? No judgmental. Y'all can tell me to who. Was it a female, male? How? What happened to you guys? And then when the whole thing was over, I said, I was supposed to stand here to talk about bullying. And they all started laughing. And I said, I made it about you guys. I made you guys answer my questions, and y'all answered them. And they were like, whoa. And then at the end, they were like, she tricked us. I was like, no, he started it first. He made my discussion easy. I said, so I turned it around to you guys. So it turned into a discussion where we laughed, and they figure I punked them. But I said, no, he started it, and I decided to end it with you guys. Not stand up here and educate y'all on bullying because y'all educated me. Y'all know bullying was wrong. So I turned it around. Sometimes I like when those discussions turn that way, where instead I stand up there and say, you know, bullying is something that you shouldn't do, But when you have somebody in the audience that opens up that door, you switch it around. And I happen to enjoy myself because the principal was like, I never saw that tactic before. I never saw a discussion turn that way. I said, sometimes we got to include them. And if somebody shows out, put them in their place and let them tell you what the theme is about. And I let them know at the end, I was supposed to talk about bullying. Y'all educated me. And they were like, you punked us. I said, no, he started it first. So we started with the questions and answers.
That's right.
And that's how it goes.
From the end to the beginning. But mission was accomplished because you got to still talk about the subject matter. I love
exactly.
Hey, Francesca, can I say something real quick?
Oh, hold on. You finished, Yvonne, today?
I wasn't.
No, go ahead,
okay.
Yvonne. I thought you were finished.
Go ahead.
I'll go B. So what I wanted to mention, so no offense to anyone, but I'm wondering if the cutting has a sensation similar to getting a tattoo. I've never had one, but I hear it's a very interesting sensation on the skin. And I think in my head, anyway, I said that could go back to what they're doing with the cutting. And then Brother Abdul had talked about dry brushing to stimulate your lymph nodes. So we're just very intricate machines that have been created, and I wonder if the cutting is, because, you know, if they wanted to hurt themselves, they would cut deep. But they seem to be cutting on the surface, like the sensation of it, like the fascination of it, is what they are attracted to. Like people do other things for the fascination, for the relaxation or the comfort that it brings them. Again, like sucking a thumb. I'm finished now, Dr. James.
One second, Dr. Sure. No, one second, Dr. James. Ivana, I'll tell you the difference because I've seen somebody get a tattoo. And let me tell you something. When they start doing that, this is something some people don't know. The person that was getting a tattoo was actually getting it on an area where it hurts, and they had to numb it. They had to numb it the night before they came in to do the tattoo. I've seen somebody that didn't numb it, and they were pricking with a needle. You know, before they even color it in, they do like a little sketch out first. Say if it's a face. Yeah, the outline, thank you. They do the outline, and they're pricking the skin. So it does hurt. The person told me it does hurt when they're pricking the skin. The difference between that with the cutting is it can be, categorized the same, but a little different because the person is literally, when they finish cutting deep into the skin, they start cutting right after more, and more till they're satisfied. And where the tattoo is that when they do the outline, they're conscious to know that they're getting something done on their arm. And that's something that's going to be, eliminated because they numbed it. If it's not numb, they know they're getting that tattoo. And where the cutter is consciously cutting, and hurting themselves just to inflict that pain with no numbness. They're actually feeling what they're doing. Where there's a difference with...
Are they feeling it all the time? Because you can block out pain with,
yes.
If they are, going through something traumatic, that could be, how they say inflict one pain to get rid of another?
Absolutely.
You ever heard that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wonder if it hurts. I'm going to ask somebody the next time I see a cutter. Yeah.
Oh, and they'll tell you. They'll tell you. You're welcome. Go ahead, Dr. James.
I just had to put myself on mute. Now, I got a question for you. It's somewhat on this topic, but it's a little bit. Did you hear about those people that they caught that fentanyl that killed that baby and those kids in the daycare?
Absolutely, I heard that.
I know you have you might have a good opinion on that. What do you think about that?
Oh, wow. Thank you for asking me that because I did keep up with the news. I'm going to throw it raw out there. First of all, to me, where in your right mind you're going to have fentanyl in a daycare where you have, I think it's a 20-month-old that died, that ingested that, and then there was a couple ones in the months, too, that ingested the fentanyl. To me, let me tell you something. It's a daycare. A daycare is where you bring your child where this person is supposed to be watching over your child while you're at work. And you're putting this confidence in this person where your child, when you drop them off, you're going to receive them the same way as you drop them off. Me, as a parent, as a grandmother, though I don't know the individuals involved, I couldn't process that news because I thought I saw the father interview where he says he has no word because his baby is not going to be coming home, and to know how his baby died. And he was in tears. They couldn't interview him no more. And I teared up and I said, wow, my God. To this individual, this lady that had this inside the daycare, how dare you? How dare you when you have children that are always, curious and don't know what they're going to pick up and stick in their mouth. So to me, in my opinion, how dare you have this type of drug in a daycare? In a daycare, by all means, in a daycare where you have different age range in that daycare that ingested this. And to me, let me tell you something. Throw the book at her and the other individuals throw the book at her and the individual that were also also involved, but her, and in fact, throw the book on her, because how dare you have this lethal drug that even in the streets where originally where I work at, now certain drugs are being replaced with fentanyl, and they're killing people faster. So that's an adult that's choosing to ingest this. Imagine a baby, how powerful that drug is, what that little child, that baby went through in the process, ingesting that, heart rate or whatever, and dying quickly in the hospital. And now, the parents are without their child because of the very lack of the incompetency and responsibility of this individual, because of all places in the daycare. So in my opinion,
she must have been crazy.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. Crazy.
Because they put the fentanyl on top of the mat that the kids sleep on and play on. They found a kilo of fentanyl on top of the play mat where the kids are playing around and sleeping. Is that woman crazy? And not only the woman, the other one they arrested, and her husband.
Exactly.
They need to put them in the jail really forever, but they're not going to put forever. But they should be, they should be out at least close to 50 years. I don't know.
From what I saw this morning, that they were doing a recap, she's approximately looking at 25, and I think, like you just said, she should be looking at more. In her position, I wouldn't want to be in her structure and her body, because when you go to jail, and especially is that type of crime, you have to be put in isolation somewhere, and not in a general population where somebody, an inmate knows, which they'll find out at the end of the day that they went in there because of that. And their days in jail, no matter how many years they give them, they're numbered already, because you literally killed a child.
I used to work in the jail. I was a doctor in the jails. I used to work in several jails in New York and New Jersey. And what I worked in one female jail, and what they do is it's not nothing to talk about, but a lot of time with the females, when they going like that, they're going to get raped. A lot of times it'll be the guards that are raping. The correction officers will rape them. But the females get raped a lot. The guys, they'll beat them up. They'll cut them in the face. They might rape them too.
No,
but
and not only that, Dr. James, it goes. Yeah, it's like, I call it like fresh meat. It goes like both ways, because her days are numbered. Once they find out, the females find out that these kids, these young babies, ingested fentanyl, and they know she was the owner of the daycare and stuff.
Okay, put it in. I'm just talking to somebody. Keep talking, Francesca. Put it right there.
Yes.
Please. Yeah, I was just getting some food. Yeah, I had some thing delivered to me, so you're bringing it in the door. But anyway, let's keep talking. So anyway, I just wondered what you thought about that. Thank you. Because that was like, what kind of idiot are you? Even if you're going to sell the drugs, what you got it in the darn nursery school, the daycare for? You know what I mean? You can't even do it in your apartment?
Exactly. Thank you. Talk about it. And you know what? Because of that incident, it got to here in the city of Patterson, where somebody was suggesting, listen, look into the daycares more thoroughly, because anything that happens, in New York, it follows here to Jersey and Patterson, and people start having, you know, the red flags awareness. And it got to here where someone posted it up and said, listen, be mindful where you stick your children in the daycares, you know, be very observant, because it could have happened here. And anything that happens there, it touches home because it makes you think. Absolutely. You have your home, you have your car, you have a friend's house. Of all places, a daycare, stupid move, bold move, because at the end of the day, there's nothing you can say to these parents. You know, I don't know about
they probably did it there because they would figure that nobody would suspect. The cops wouldn't look for drugs in the daycare.
No.
But they had no respect for the kids.
No, but then ask you.
They had a pop-up inspection from the city. You know, because they go, you know, the inspectors go around and investigate daycares on, you know, do the inspections and everything. And that week, they had a pop-up visit for an inspection, and she cleared it.
Wow.
Well, I think maybe they was cutting the drugs in the daycare, and they must have spilled it on the mat or something. But they had no business in there with it. And they got two charges. They got the state charge, and that was they charged him with murder, and they charged him with something else. Then they got the federal government just charged him yesterday with distributing drugs. So they said with the federal charge they can get 20 years, and with the state charge they probably can get another 20. But what happened is the husband, they can't find him, and he's probably the ringleader. So
well, they'll get him. They'll
probably have, what they'll do is they'll make deals with these women. Oh, it's one woman, one man. They'll make deals with them to tell on each other so they can cut their sentence. But I don't see why any of them should get a cut sentence because that's totally ridiculous. You know,
no.
And if you're an adult, anybody, you got enough darn sense to know that you don't bring no drugs like that in a nursery, school, daycare, or something. Even if you're a drug addict. Now, I've known many people that were drug addicts, but they still had a little class about themselves. You know what I mean? They wouldn't
absolutely.
just do anything.
And Dr.
That's
James,
some low-life
add,
stuff.
and I have to add to some of the charges, there's also child endangerment that carries a lot of weight, too. You know, because that charge is also going to be implicated to them because not only is she going to be charged with murder because the child died, you also had to think about that there was other three children under the age of, I think, 3 years old that also went to the hospital, and apparently one is doing good, but you're going to be charged individually because of their safety. You did not implicate safety on the other 3 children. So thank God they didn't pass away, but you have one that did and 3 that were in danger. So she has a lot of charges coming up. So I don't think it's just going to be 25 years. It's going to be more. It's going to be a little more.
Bronx. You know, the Bronx has gotten terrible with all the killings every freaking day. There's killings in the Bronx. Brooklyn used to be real bad. It's not as bad as the Bronx no more. I don't know what's going on up there. They need to bring the National Guards in there.
No, and it's terrible because before that incident happened, there was one that I saw. I'm trying to see, was it Long Island? A father killed his 2-year-old son. 2-year son, and I was like, wow, what? And he didn't kill himself or nothing. I was like, dude, when you go to jail, you is gonna be fresh meat up in there. You should have offed yourself because and I think it was because the baby was. Yeah, you should have offed yourself because I think it was because the baby was crying. He couldn't deal with it, and you know he was like smacking him around to where he physically went, you know, overboard and killed them. And the autopsy came back, fractured skull, this and that. And I was like, wow, when you go to jail, forget it. You don't even have to worry about the sentence. I wouldn't worry about the sentence. I'm worried about you walking up in there that they know you killed your own child. So sometimes you got to be mindful. I think it was in Long Island.
Yeah, Long Island to serve them. They'll give them a long time. That's one thing the guys know. Like the guys out there in the streets, they know not to go out to Long Island to do too much and nothing because they know they're gonna get extra time. They'd rather do it in the city. But I'm talking about the Bronx. The Bronx, they forever shooting somebody or killing somebody for going in the grocery store and standing at the but people just standing around there shooting them. I don't know what's going on. The drugs is like crazy. And this fentanyl is poison. It's just plain up poison.
And let me tell you something, Dr. James. Not only that, mental health is real because there was prior incidents that I noticed in the Bronx where an elderly would be walking with his walker, and why do a teenager has to go up and beat this elderly person that's not doing nothing? I was appalled and disgusted when I saw that. And the person, unfortunately, the elderly person got, such a severe beating that he died. And this was, him walking down the street minding his business, and a teenager just, beat on him to the point that, so imagine his life is going to be, is wasted already for doing that because you're looking at murder. They're going to throw, stuff on him because he was a senior. Seniors are very, looked at very, vulnerable. And I was like, wow, what in your mind made you get up this morning and said, I'm going to beat up a senior, anyone down the street that's a senior? That's what I'm randomly thinking in my head, that someone gets, how did you get up and say, I'm going to go outside, I'm going to beat on somebody that you don't know, is vulnerable, that can't fight you back? It's so disgusting on so many levels, and your life is shot. So we have a little bit of this and that.
The drugs is causing mental illness, too.
Yes.
Oh, no,
if you use drugs enough, it will lead to you developing mental illness, or it can lead to that. So these drugs, especially some of the drugs they're using all kinds of stuff that we never heard of. They're putting chemicals, they're putting fentanyl in the cocaine, they're putting it in the heroin, they're probably putting it even with marijuana or something. So,
it's everywhere.
Everything. And it's making people crazy. So they need the National Guard or something up there because the police ain't working.
No, and Dr. James, if you research what fentanyl really is, now it's like deteriorating the person's skin. If you really look at it, it's deteriorating the person. If you see that someone's using fentanyl, you should see what their skin really looks like. It's like you can peel their skin, right, and it's open wound. It's very, if you look into fentanyl in YouTube, the destruction it does to that person's body, you would not want to mess with that. So not only are they ingesting that and it's going into the other drugs, you should see what the person's body starts looking like, open sores and stuff like that. And it's horrible to look at, but it's absolutely like disgusting. You'd be like, wow, you're using this drug and your whole entire skin from your body is just peeling in your face. And it's absolutely disgusting. But fentanyl is really, really out there and real, real bad and being mixed into other drugs. And like I said, if you guys have a little chance later on in Google what fentanyl really does to the person's body, it's awful. When I see it, I'd be like, oh, my God, why do you even use it? Your body is, like, deteriorating. Your skin is, like, falling right off your bone, and it's very, very disgusting to see. So, like I said, fentanyl it's awful. And you just bringing up the daycare, it's just like, I can't process this child that ingested this, and the parents right now, grieving over. We grieve the loss of an adult. We grieve the loss of a child being, to gun violence. But then when you see a little baby fentanyl and then they're sleep, I can't, it makes your mind wonder and be like, listen, check in the daycares, make sure they're good. Because it's very sad, and the times we live in that is horrible. It's very horrible. We're just one people. We're just a couple of people that would like to make a change, but it's very, very hard. There's some people that when they're using drugs, they want to get something harder to get them high, and not knowing what it's doing to their body. And fentanyl now is like the deadliest drug out there now. And I've seen it firsthand what that drug is doing, and it's absolutely terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
People that are selling it.
Oh, this is bad.
Those are the ones, because the drug addict gonna use anything. If he's a real drug addict, he just buy it on the street. He don't know what's in it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But the people that's making it and selling it, they are the ones. They need to give them life in prison. Like in China, what they would do with somebody like that, they would execute them. You know that, right?
Listen. Oh, no,
That's
absolutely.
They don't play around in China.
And DR, they don't play. I'm going to tell you an incident that happened. They raped I think she was 10 years old. 10 years old. They were looking for the two rapists. Those two rapists didn't make it to jail. Down there, what they do is they tie you up in your legs and your arms. They beat you first. They beat you with a stick. Once they beat you to the point that you're screaming that you want. No, this was in DR. Yeah, this was in DR. That it wasn't in China.
I'm on the phone.
Yeah, I'm just.
I'm on the phone. Wait till I get the phone. It's my granddaughter. Talking about a kid. She's 18, but she getting my nerves. Alea, wait till I get off the phone, please, and I'll talk to you. I'll get you something later. I'll get you something. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So anyway, like you were saying, it's ridiculous.
And this person literally, they beat him, tied up in the hands and the legs. After they beat him, they burned him alive. He doesn't even make it to jail. So if down there you are caught for rape or robbing, you get the same beating. The same beating for robbing. They either cut your hands, they beat you first, they tie you up, they cut your hands for even robbing. So they take justice into their own hands. They don't even make it to jail. So certain countries.
Where is this at?
This was in DR. This was in DR. Yeah. This is exactly what happened, yeah.
They still doing that now?
Yeah. I just had told you that there was a 10-year-old that they raped, and the whole neighborhood got together and said they want to find the person that did it. They did find the two individuals. They tied them up, bounded their legs and their arms, and with a switch or something from a tree branch or whatever, they were all taking turns beating the two individuals. And then they were not satisfied with that because the young girl is no longer here. And imagine two of them raping her, what she was suggested to. And after the beating, which you saw the video of the beating, they poured gas over them and they lit them up on fire. That was their justice.
They said that down there the cops don't necessarily do that much, so a lot of times the people have to take things into their own hands, right?
Absolutely, yes. That's how it is. Now, to me, up here, the situations of those padophilias and stuff like that, to me, categorize them. Sorry, I'm not a violent person, but if a person has done something to a child, stick them in the room, characterize them while they're still alive, and then hand them to the officials and stick them in jail. That's my thought, thinking outside the box. But sometimes when they're grabbed here,
you got to make sure that they actually did it. See, that's the key with this country. You got to give them a trial because you got to prove that they did it. See, in some countries, they just say, "Oh, you did it," and that's it. Even though people may think you did it, there are some cases that they're going to say they didn't do it. But I think that when you deliberately, because the guy that raped the girl is dead, right? So that's one thing. You killed somebody and you raped them. But when they deliberately kill a 1-year-old where they don't even have no chance to live again. At least if the guy raped her and she's still alive, she's still living. But when you kill with some stupid stuff like these drugs and you don't give a damn, about these little kids or nothing, then you should get the book thrown at you. And they would have got, if they was in China or something, they would get the death penalty.
Oh, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm totally against that in legal objection, but there's certain individuals that should get it because she showed no remorse. If you saw the look on her face when she got arrested, she showed no remorse of her actions. And that's
she said, I didn't do nothing. She said, I didn't do nothing.
No remorse whatsoever. No, I'm sorry. No, that, I wasn't thinking. Because other people were there, I wasn't thinking. She showed no remorse whatsoever. So to me, throw the book at her. Because you know exactly what you was doing.
She texted her husband, I don't know how many times, before she even called for the ambulance.
Oh, wow.
They had no regards for human life. These babies suffered. These babies could have been saved, but these babies suffered because she had no regards for human life. She waited for God knows how long. She called the husband was much more important for him to come and get to remove everything that was there. And then eventually by the time they got moving, all what was there, all the amounts, And then they called, and those babies suffered. The 3 babies they saved had to get ejected with Narcan. And the precious 1-year-old didn't have a chance.
No. Absolutely.
It said 2 milligrams, 2 little tiny milligrams of fentanyl can kill an adult. They said
Imagine
that
a baby.
The government they have confiscated this year enough fentanyl to kill the entire United States population. That's how poisonous stuff is.
No, it is. And like I said, you guys, later on, Google fentanyl and look at the YouTubes, what it really does to a person that ingests that of their own will, what it does to their body. I mean, I've seen a friend of mine's that he has an organization affiliated to helping people that are addicted to drugs. And I had to cover the picture on Facebook because I was like, ooh, and I even hit him. And I said, be careful. Facebook is very, strict now with putting those type of graphic pictures. But I understand he was trying to educate what someone on fentanyl looks like. And I'm telling you guys, it was horrific to see that picture. And I said, wow, why would you want to take that drug and know that is doing that to your body? You can catch so much, bacteria. And maybe the drug won't kill you, but the bacteria will. So fentanyl right now is a real epidemic drug. And like I said, like Dr. James just said, if that amount kills a human person, imagine what could have done to that little baby. And also the parents know that their child died from that drug. You can't be in those parents' shoes right now. As a mother and a grandmother, I can't put myself in that position. I have my babies. I want to know what to think, how to feel at that instant, because once you get out of that reality that your child's not here, not only does grief kicks in, but the anger of knowing that this individual did this to your child, it's unbelievable. It's sad at the same time, and like she just said, no regards to human life. The audacity of you calling your husband to remove that item there before you even chose to save the life of a child says a lot. That's why I said there's going to be many charges brought up against her. That it's not going to be little what she's facing. And if you don't have no type of remorse, then at the end of the day, you're going to get what you deserve when you're put in that facility, because they do justice their own ways. You have cops that say, listen, we have this person coming in, they did this, and your days are numbered. Imagine getting beaten every single day of your life while you're in there because of what you did to that child. You might as well off yourself.
Yeah, it's all a.
But they'll rape them. They'll rape, like women. A lot of women get raped in jail, and they will rape them. I know because I used to work in jail. But I'm gonna tell you this: that if I was 20-something years old and I had a 1-year-old kid in daycare, and they did something like that, I'll be ready to kill somebody. I hate to say it, but I'll be angry as anything.
It's an emotional feeling. It's an emotional feeling.
Be stupid. Even if you're a dope fiend and you're a drug addict, you still don't put it in the place with little babies is in there. What's wrong with you?
No, exactly. And Dr. James, let me tell you, that feeling that you have is a normal feeling. I saw not too long ago, I think you guys remember, I think the father was in court, and I think the individual killed his son. I don't know what kind of sentence was brought down to the person. The father did not feel it was enough, and he jumped from the bleachers to hit the accuser, and they arrested him. Okay, that you act out in court from that emotional. To me, the father should not have been arrested because it was in an emotional outburst at that moment. You're looking at your son's killer, where the judge is implicating a sentence that is something that you don't like. Right there and there is a natural reaction that you're going to explode like that. It could have been me. It could have been you. It could have been anybody. At that moment, you have to think the state of mind of that father. When I saw that they were arresting him because, assault on that accuser, I said, hold on, he shouldn't even be arrested. You should be thinking the state of mind of this person sitting there, of how much years you're going to give this person. They're going to flip out. You're going to know if the family is in there, if somebody's going to jump from those bleachers and they're going to flip out. And that's an emotion and grief that they're feeling. To me, that situation, when it happens like that, I'm not saying that what the family member did is right and that they did it in a facility where the judge and the cops are there. And I understand they got to look for safety measures and stuff for the other people that are viewing this, physically there. But still, you got to think about the emotional state of the father or the mother. I've seen so many cases where the family members, brothers or whatever, jump on the accuser. And I'd be like, hold up, you have to think about their situation too. You can't just stick handcuffs on them, escort them outside and make them understand, okay, I know you're upset and stuff like that. But the system don't work like that. And they arrested the father because he jumped on the accuser. Should he have been arrested?
I dismiss the case.
Later,
But I don't cut you off. But you know what? I think that I don't know what's going on, but they need to change the laws for this fentanyl. They should make the laws even stronger when they catch people with fentanyl than when they catch them with like regular cocaine and heroin, because this stuff is poisoning people.
No, absolutely. And, absolutely. And that would be, in my case, what I would have done if it would have been me in that situation, I would have been doing the protests. Shut the daycare down. Number one, it's going to be shut down. But I would be doing the protests every single day up until that is taken seriously. And that's sometimes what people have to, do. And it takes a village, because sometimes somebody will say, well, that's not my problem, let the person handle it. But most likely, I see a protest coming from this, because the parents that are involved, they're not okay with this situation. We're talking about a daycare that is still a state facility where it's run by licenses by the state, and it should be like they said up here, it was looked for inspection and stuff like that. There should be more thorough inspection. There should be, cameras, better monitored for situations like that, so this doesn't happen again. Because if it's that daycare, it can be another daycare, it can be another daycare the following, it can be somewhere else in another city, in another state, but it depends on the person that it happens to, that they start doing a rally and they're not going to take this anymore. Because like I said, fentanyl is a pandemic now. It's huge. It's very, very huge. And it's sad, like I said. It's very sad. But me, when I saw that, I was infuriated. I was upset. And I always look at the body mechanics of the person, and she really had no remorse. And in hearing now that she called the husband, even so, how stupid can you be? You know, you showed no emotion, no care. This was not your
they're probably
child.
going to cut her a deal. Watch how stupid these prosecutors are, because they're going to try to get her to tell on the husband or whoever they got the drugs from. See, that's what they do. You know what I mean? And
no, absolutely.
The lawyer and everything. What?
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. They cut a deal.
But she don't go to jail as long. But in some cases, they shouldn't cut a deal.
No, and I don't think they should, because of the severity and nature that was involved. We're talking about children, and that hits harder. When it's children, it hits harder. I don't think they would do a thorough investigation. I'm quite sure they're going to catch him, because I don't see her getting a deal cut. That is like injustice and a slap in the face of all the parents involved, of the children that did survive and the one that is no longer here. To me, that would be a slap in the face. I would never accept it. Parents are, in fact, parents are able to ask, what the person is facing, of if there's a deal being, cut. The families could, deny that. They have a voice. I've seen that happen several times. If it was in my case, I said, don't cut that person a deal, because you will see me at their parole hearing every time, where they'll stay in jail. I know a mother that her son was killed a couple of years ago, and she still goes to the parole hearing for every individual that shot her son. Until this day, they have not set one foot outside, because she brings her granddaughter. I no longer have my father. She does a strong impact. At 7 years old, she said, I never had my father take me to my graduation, celebrate my birthday, or even see me get married. And this child, who's now in the Army, grown, sets aside every time she hears one of them are going up for parole. She goes up there and she speaks how she still feels, how she no longer has her dad. And that's sad. And that's taken very seriously. And like I said, this happened many, many years ago, and these people are still in jail. So the parents, grandparents, or whoever involved, moms, there's an impact when you show up in the parole hearing. I don't want that person paroled, because of the severity of the situation.
New York, they got so many cases, because we just talked about all the murder cases and everything in New York, that the courts are overcrowded, and the judges and the prosecutors, they can't put all these cases on trial, because they don't have the money nor the resources to do that. So they quick to turn around and make a deal, plea bargain, because they just don't have the resources to try everybody. Now, they might try this woman because this case is all over the country and everybody knows about it. So they may have to go ahead and give her a trial. But if she knows she's a 100% guilty and everything, she might opt out of a trial and just say, okay, I'll just plead guilty, but if you cut me down, to whatever they can cut it down to. And they'll probably try to get her to tell where the husband is. She probably knows where the husband is, or have a good idea.
No, they'll catch them, because, the world is small, and they've had caught many people because of friends, or I've seen them here. So believe me, he ain't going to escape. You can't hide too thoroughly where they'll find you. They'll grab him. Well, I gotta
Okay, go ahead.
I gotta log off, because I gotta let my other colleague come in. Thank you so much for the dialogue, for all the everything you guys said up here about the cutting, and also about may that little baby rest in peace, and the other ones that are not damaged from that fentanyl, recuperate from that situation. And prayers up for all the families involved in this situation. May God give them, strength to deal with what's, going to follow ahead. I'll see you guys, next Wednesday. Lots of blessings to you guys. I love my kings and queens that always come on, and you have a very good night. And enjoy also your weekend that's coming up soon. Love you all.
Yeah.
And I'll see you next Wednesday.
Definitely.
All right, bye.